Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Prue Klein, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator here at Wine Communicators of Australia. Today, Professor Roberta Crouch from Flinders University will be sharing her insights into what people consider when looking at getaways and holiday alternatives. Given the current state of the tourism industry as a result of COVID-19, now more than ever, I feel that we would benefit from a better understanding of what drives visitors to our wine regions and how Australia compares to other international destinations. We have allowed plenty of time for your questions to be answered at the end of Roberta's presentation. However, feel free to send them through to me as they come to mind. You can do this via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. As usual, this webinar will be recorded and a link to this recording will be sent to you should you wish to watch the content again at a later stage. It is now my pleasure to hand over to you, Roberta.
Oh, thank you, Prue, and welcome everybody. It's wonderful to be here today. I just want to share with you what research has shown over the years, and also industry experts have fed back to us, and also people who host tourists through various different venues. What drives tourists to make their destination choices? Now, these days, as Prue mentioned, due to COVID-19, it seems a bit difficult to talk about tourism, but still we have our local tourists to think of. We have people who can't travel overseas at the moment, and eventually I'm sure we will have our international tourists return. So it's probably a good time to consolidate what we're doing and try out some new things and think about the future. Okay, so as I mentioned, obviously C-19 has really changed the tourism landscape. People are really struggling. However, there certainly is a light at the end of the tunnel for domestic tourism at least. So let's concentrate on the opportunities that are presented by Australians who need a holiday or at least a staycation getaway. And people particularly are looking for mental and psychological relief from the stresses of this year. People working from home for extended periods of time, feeling of isolation from family members, perhaps parents and grandparents and children. And of course, there's worry about health and job security. And it's certainly, I think, been stressful for a lot of parents doing the homeschooling over this last year. So for many reasons, even though travel has been curtailed a fair bit, it doesn't mean that people don't need to get away, even if it's just for day trips. And of course, wine regions are perfect for that. So just like anything else that people plan for, or even when they do things quite impetuously, people specifically have goals, whether it's going away for a day or going away for a month or taking that long service leave. And those goals vary according to how they're feeling at the moment, who's traveling with them, what the circumstances around the getaway are, how long people are going to go away or how far they plan to travel. So typically it's things like relaxation, activities with the kids. So very often parents have to satisfy the needs of the family. They make the decision, but everybody else lives the experience. And so, you know, there's nothing worse than making a bad decision and then having the rest of your family hold you to account for it. People want to get some exercise and fresh air. Very often people want to learn, whether it's going to museums or taking farm stays or experiential type holidays. Again, visits to wineries and wine regions are very conducive to this. Most of all, they want to have fun. They want to have some emotional satisfaction and social satisfaction. And I can't really stress that enough. People, I think, very often think very seriously, and they should think seriously about their business and what they're offering in tourism, but they need to understand that if people are taking time off, they want to enjoy themselves. However they find that fun presents itself, whether it's stretching themselves in hiking, or whether it's learning something, whether it's relaxing, whether it's shopping, entertainment, whatever. Very often people are looking for a certain degree of excitement. Not necessarily thrill-seeking, but they certainly want to feel stimulated by what they're doing. Very often people want to experience various products. They really do want to consume and experience what people are producing, services that are offered in particular places. This is where the heritage of a souvenir comes from. And my own research and others has shown that people like to revisit a fantastic experience by thinking about places where they've enjoyed themselves and been happy. And you might be able to think of a time yourself that you really enjoyed an experience, and it might not even be very far away, but by buying the products that you consumed there or drinking wine that you enjoyed there, you get to revisit that place again. And research that I've been involved in, involving people who visited during wine events or festivals, found that this was really powerful, that people would relive that by consuming those wines again, and they actually developed a degree of attachment. They want to be entertained. There's bucket list things to consider. So people do have a goal, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And your job as a destination is to try and satisfy that. So I've put up a little model here, and I don't want you to get too wrapped up in all the lines going in various directions, but this is some simple results from a survey I did recently with American tourists who were considering a trip overseas. Now, COVID kind of arrested this research. However, this model holds up whether people are thinking about a long distance trip or a short trip. And of course, in the future, again, American tourists will be very important to us. So how does it work? What's the process in psychology, in people's minds when they consider thinking about a place, whether they've been there or not? Well, first of all, as you can imagine, there's a rational assessment of this place, and I'll just circle that. So they use their brain, we use our brain, and we try and have an unemotional think about what kind of value, what's there to buy and experience, what will our experiential things be, what will we see, what will we do, and then of course there's the aspect of safety. Now, I first started doing this research thinking about people's concern about terrorism events, but of course now that's been extended to think about people's health safety in this current environment. People will have positive feelings about a place. They'll feel happy, excited, charmed. They might think, oh, I'd love to go there. I long to go there. I've always wanted to go there. And it makes them feel motivated in a happy way. And then of course, they might, if the place has a bad reputation or has some aspect of danger about it, or if we're thinking in a country context, maybe you don't have a very good impression of that country, you might feel distrust or even dislike. People have reported feeling angry when thinking about various places. So as you can imagine, these are negative impacts, these are very positive impacts, and these are positive impacts. And they all make a contribution to these four basic categories. Value doesn't mean cheap, it means for what I've had to do, travel, spend, time, am I getting back the value that I would hope? Are there things for me to enjoy? Will the service be good? Will the hotels be good? Will the food be good? Are there things for me to see and experience? And of course, how safe do I feel? And here's the basic percentage of contribution that each of these things make to the desire to visit. So you can see how powerful these two in the middle are. Okay, and this is where experiences come in. So I want to go now to this notion of emotion because it's really important. You might think that people are very rational when they think about going places. They are really not. A holiday or a day out or even an evening out, it's a hedonic thing. It's a pleasure thing. So while certainly rational thinking to the various categories makes a very strong contribution, this is just a regression analysis, so don't worry about it too much. You just need to know that this fraction here, the closer it is to 1, the more powerful it is. So these are all very positive and powerful. Negative feelings, as you would imagine by this negative sign, have a negative influence. So they diminish the attractiveness or their perceptions of what these things would be like. And positive feelings, again, make a very strong contribution, particularly to value. So feeling positive, or if people feel positive before they go and visit you and after they go and visit you, this is going to be really strong in terms of how much value they think you provided in achieving their goals. And it's going to stimulate them to buy your wine and visit you again and enjoy the experience again, tell their friends about you, and so forth. So you do need to appeal to people's rational thinking, but even more so, you need to elicit positive rather than negative emotions. So I won't spend too much time on this slide, but really, what do these mean in more detail? Well, the expected value, about 10%, it's basically what people feel as in a scale, you know, what do I need to sacrifice to get what this experience is going to provide? So sacrifice we mostly think of in terms of money, but it can also mean time, distance traveled, inconvenience, the sacrifice you gave in opportunity. You could have done something else. What is the expected or experienced quality of the service and products? In this case, we're talking about wine, probably food, anything else that you've got going in your cellar doors or venues. And then what's the experience in terms of safety? And I come back to that again, especially in our environment. So people are looking for good quality experiences. They want to feel relaxed. Anxiety is a very negative emotion. They want to feel trust in what you're providing, and they want to enjoy the experience. And then the other major contributor to this, of course, is the sights and scenery. Now in Europe, of course, in the most visited country in the world, France, or in other very important wine tourism destination places like Italy, Spain, you know, they're overloaded with these iconic historical landmarks, but we have ours as well. And certainly they'll be looking to enjoy the outdoors, looking to enjoy the environment. But I'm going to make a special point of this interesting things to do. Now, in a further slide, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of engaging with people who visit with you and co-creating experiences with them. So this is things like doing a wine blending class, doing an afternoon tasting with a winemaker. My research and a recent paper published by a colleague in France reiterate that people are really looking to meet and ask personal questions, not personal questions about their lives, of course, but, you know, what got you interested in wine? Why do you make these wines and not other wines? Tell us about your own experiences in Australia and elsewhere. People just love that. And they find that a really engaging and positive things to do that elicits lots of positive responses. And of course, everybody enjoys scenery, what we call in this research, winescape. Now, again, before COVID, people were really quite concerned about traveling with respect to tourism or terrorism, sorry. That's kind of been discounted for the moment, but they think about safety with respect to health. If I get sick, what's going to happen to me? Will I get to a hospital? Is there a doctor nearby if I need one? But it's also things like crime and corruption. So can I leave my handbag near my chair? Do I have to always be watching where the kids are? These are very important considerations to people, because remember, they've gone away for the day or the week or the month to relax and enjoy themselves. So anything that is a threat to that peace, I suppose, that causes anxiety is something that will cause them to think less of a destination. There's no question about that. Now, I thought you might be interested to see how we compare on these major points with what is probably our major competitor, and that would be France, if we're thinking in an international context. So I tested a bunch of countries against Australia, and this is really a good news story. So as you can see, for value, we're actually considered to be slightly better. This is on a scale of 1 to 9, where 1 is not good and 9 is perfect. On services and products, we're certainly compatible. Now you think about, you know, what what sort of disadvantages we suffer in some markets against perceptions of the superiority of European wines, particularly French and Italian, as compared to Australians. This shows that in the American market in particular, not an issue. They think that the icons and scenery are a little bit better in France, but it's pretty hard to compare with the Eiffel Tower and some of those domains and the Louvre and all the rest of it. So if you take those things into consideration, again, we come up very, very positively. In terms of safety, we're far better. And I think this is something that we should be talking about in our promotions and communications. So for overall country attractiveness, whoops, as you can see, we come up very, very well. Oops, I've lost my spot. We come up very, very well. And so this is really something that should boost our confidence when we're talking to people in Australia who might be feeling a bit sorry for themselves because they can't make their European holiday this year. And we can certainly promote this when we get back into the international tourism market, which hopefully will be in the not too distant future. So, okay, why do we care about this destination attractiveness? Because it is the major driver of choice. There's no question. People do not choose to go to places unless they have to go for work or something else that they don't find attractive. There are two other things that make an impact. One is distance or proximity. How far away is it? Because that leads to sacrifice. You know, is it a long drive, a short drive? Is it difficult to get there? Is it difficult to leave? How are the communications facilities there and infrastructure when we're talking about longer distance travel? Now, this is usually more of a negative, but it can also be a positive. And I think if people are really looking for relaxation and to turn the world off a little bit and forget about work and forget about other stresses, then being a little bit out of touch and a little bit further away can actually be a positive. The other thing, of course, that's really, really important is the circumstances. So are you going by yourself? Have you got kids? How old are they? With friends or a group? Are we looking to satisfy a group of people, or is it just you and your partner or a close friend? And of course, is it a long trip, a day trip, an afternoon? You know, go out Saturday morning, find a nice Airbnb for the evening, enjoy the wines that day, go out and enjoy the wines the next day. All of these things will also have an impact on choice, but by far, destination attractiveness is the most important. Okay, so we all know that it's going to be a tough summer for tourism. And I put this picture down here because I'm a bit of a Qatar flyer, especially when I'm going long haul up to Europe in the days when I used to do that. And sorry, they keep sending me these email messages showing me pictures like this of this girl who looks like she's going into an operating theater with her mask on and her visor. And I have to say, they're trying to make me feel better by saying your safety is our priority. But that actually makes me feel more anxious. And if I'm going on a holiday and I have to spend long haul time strapped down with my mask and my visor and my hazmat suit on, I'm actually of a mind not to go. Yeah. And I think that many other people that I've talked to feel kind of the same way. So again, this is an opportunity for us. We should be encouraging people to enjoy staycations, day trips out, weekends away, and so forth. So I just picked this up in the Australian the other day. Only 1 in 10 Australians at the moment say they plan to leave their hometown for Christmas, and more than half say they're unlikely to travel at all over the next 6 months. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be looking to do things close to home, and perhaps they may get more optimistic as things open up across borders. We know there's still big issues in Victoria, but Queensland, New South Wales, Western Australia, eventually Northern Territory, will open up for South Australian locals. But this means that People within a state are going to be looking very close to home. So for you guys interstate, you're going to be looking at your own domestic people, but eventually we could also be looking at wine trips that could be going across borders, and there's opportunities there to set up tours perhaps. The downside of this, of course, is something that I've been following as well, and this is the fact that people are saving. So people are paying off their credit cards. The banks have been reporting that $50 notes are coming out of circulation and all sorts of interesting things like this. So I think this goes to people's confidence about the future, that they're hoarding a little bit. Now, I guess it's up to us as marketers and tourism people and people who have the answer to their anxiety to convince them that we have the value to have them open up their wallets and come experience some wine regions. So the other good news story, of course, is that statistics show that typically Australians who would travel overseas spend more away than foreign visitors spend here. So it's up to us to capture that. So we want to offer these staycation options, perhaps a series of events, perhaps collaborators with other people around you. As borders open up, perhaps organizing tours across different wine regions. Think about your day trippers, but also don't forget about your cellar door virtual experiences. These have also been found through my own research and others to elicit really powerful emotions and senses of satisfaction. And so people may not come and visit you as often as they might have, or they might be interstate and can't get to you, but it doesn't mean they can't buy your wine or experience a staycation or an event with your cellar door, with your venue, via virtual means through the internet. So, whoops, going backwards. So what do we know? We know that wine tourism is pleasure. It's hedonic. It's a pleasure-oriented experience. And the best way to get people to loosen up and develop loyalty is around engagement, and this is experiential. So wine lovers, people, particularly premium wine buyers, where I've done most of my work, are incredibly involved. And this is far more important than their wine knowledge. They like to learn about wine. They consider themselves pretty knowledgeable. But more important than that is how important wine is to their life. And there's an opportunity now, I think, where people are pursuing hobbies, where people are really looking to stay active, to tap into that. So again, not thinking too much about the rational side of the equation. You might have great wines and you might be able to cite lots of objective reasons about why it's terrific, but I can guarantee you, people need to feel some sense of attachment to your brand. They want to feel positive about you, about what you're doing. They want to engage with your location, whether it be virtually or face-to-face or both. And the payoff of that, of course, is sales. You know, at the end of the day, we're all in this to increase our exports and increase wine sales. So, some of these key findings. In the great scheme of things, wine tourism is not that different to general tourism in terms of what people are looking for overall. They want to satisfy goals, whatever they might be. They're looking for value, they're looking for quality service and good wines, good spirits, good ciders or whatever it is, good food. They want some quality experiences. They want to become involved in an experience. If they take the trouble to get in the car or get in a plane and come and see you, unless their goal is total relaxation, which is totally fine, they may want to learn some more. They may want to become involved in an activity at your site. And of course, they want to feel safe and enjoy the ambience while they're doing it. And while they might think rationally about this, equally or more importantly is how they feel about it before they get to you and how they feel about it when they leave. Now, I'm just going to take a minute and share a recent experience I had with you. I went with a friend to a region And at the pub the night before, we were looking to experience some of the local wines, and we tried one, and it was fantastic. We really enjoyed it. So we took the trouble to go out to that cellar door the next day, and the experience was not very good. So whilst we enjoyed the wines and I still bought some, I certainly didn't go away feeling valued. I didn't go away with a positive feeling about the experience. And I certainly, being a normal person as well as a researcher, I won't be passing along any startling word of mouth about them either. So it is important. Now, I've just asked Michael to help me take us to a place that I just want to show you quickly. This is a little wine brand in Ontario, and you might not like the brand and it might not have your same target audience, but these people really know who they are. They're called Small Talk Wines, and they're for girls. Now, in the last couple of years, they've put up a couple of pictures of token men in there who I guess are now allowed to go. But this is a club, this is a venue for women. And they make no apologies for that. And they sell a lot of wine. They have a very strong following. And what they do appeals to their audience. So, mi casa es su casa. My house is your house. We pride ourselves on being fun, the most fun, colorful, happy place in all of wine country. What kinds of events do they have? They have yoga classes, baby goats, epic trivia nights, wine-fueled watercolor classes. That'd be fun. We've got something coming up for everyone. Check out our events page to see what's coming up soon. Book a wine tasting. Put a night together. Have a private event. People go there. These are ladies who lunch. They've got a story, they've got a product, and they've got a following. So when I'm talking about eliciting emotions and remembering who you are, thinking about what makes you different, thinking about your own audience, this is just a really good example of a brand that does this really well. There's a couple of others on a slide that I'm going to share with you later. Thanks, Michael. Okay, so in terms of a virtual event, this particular slide shows you that this was some research I did a few years ago for Wine Australia. It shows a brand ambassador who was a winemaker running a virtual tasting. We did about 50 or 60 of them. And we did them in the Barossa, in the Adelaide Hills, out in Clare. Here's our winemaker acting as a brand ambassador. People were online in a chat room, watching the streaming, asking questions. And at the end of it, we asked them sort of what they'd learned, because people want to learn about wine. So there's your rational satisfaction, and 11.5%. So it's important. Social satisfaction, 10%. So interacting with each other was important in the chat room, and emotional satisfaction, 21%. And all of these things together, along with the power of an engaging, down-to-earth brand ambassador, who was the winemaker, and we had heaps of them, men, women, young people, old people, all sorts of personalities, all sorts of wines. They all worked very well. And overall, there's like this powerful 71% influence on how unique and engaging they thought that experience was. They then felt stronger attachment to the wine, but more importantly, they were happy to spend almost $3 a bottle more after an experience than when we tested what they would pay for those wines before the event. So this shows you that face-to-face, you know, that's the real deal for sure, but you can recreate this virtually. It really can be done. So they're really interested in learning, but they're just as taken and engaged through the emotional, social satisfaction and the power of someone who's really, as winemakers are, engaged and legitimate and authentic about their own products. Okay, so again, you need to think about your own branding, think about consumer goals, when people think about visiting you, what will they think about? I know it sounds corny, but it does work. And there's lots of screeds of research that support it. So here's some questions for you that you might want to think about when you're putting together your own cellar door and virtual cellar door website strategy. What's your brand's personality? Who are your audience, knowing that you can't be all things to all people? What kind of emotional satisfaction and social satisfaction will you provide if people visit you? What's your value proposition? All consumers feel risk. In a tourism situation, they feel high risk because they won't know whether or not you're going to provide value until they've experienced it. Once they've visited you, that's your one chance to engage them to come back. Or in the case of this place that we visited recently, my friend and I, yeah, the wine's okay, but I won't be going back. So people are feeling particularly risk averse at the moment. People do not mind paying if they feel the sacrifice is worth it. So don't worry about your pricing. It doesn't mean you need to go on sale, far from it. It just means you need to provide people with the satisfaction that they're looking for. So here's the next question. How do you communicate your value best? Here's a little test for you. Try and think about doing this without mentioning your wine. And the reason I say that is because, as you would know, there's lots of people that make good wine. So you need to think about communicating what's special about you and the experience that you offer if you can't bring up the fact that you make great wine, because that's a given, to be honest. So here's just a couple of photos from some places that I've been recently before COVID. I was lucky enough to make a trip to Stellenbosch. It really moved the dial for me. I'm glad to see that in Australia, we're moving past the days of express tastings. We're now doing flights. People are settling in, because that's certainly the experience in South Africa. Here's some wines we were trying on safari. There's sculpture. This is a place in Austria where people have got a big, they had these, the terracotta tanks, but this was one made out of marble that holds 700 liters of Riesling. There's beautiful food. There's activities going on under these cabanas here, looking over the lake. Beautiful presentation of wines, art, nice tasting rooms. These are a very interesting young couple who are both wine exporters working for their various domains. So remember that people are looking for this authenticity. They want to do things. It might be, you know, plant a vine. That's big in Europe now, to own your own vine. Do some wine blending. Learn a bit about proper tasting. But here's the important one for you, and repeat visits is the last one. They want to feel some sense of place. So last question, how will you convey this on your website in person and in the virtual world? Okay, again, last thing here, don't forget about leveraging technology. People should be visiting you even if they're not on your premises. It's really critical to have the perfect website these days. I don't mean, you know, fancy, lots of Java and all the rest of it, but engaging, tells your story, provides the information that people want and that they need to buy your wines, find you, and engage with you. Bit of social media is important, of course. People have rediscovered blogs these days. They want to engage through live streaming, videos, community forums, and at least for your people, if you're exporting, don't forget that they can be a virtual tourist and become engaged with you and stay engaged with you, even if they can't come and see you face to face. And virtual reality, of course, lives really in the tourism realm. I've just left some useful websites for you to have a look at. There's some interesting ones there that offer blending classes and meeting the web, you know, cooking classes, label design workshops, all sorts of things, people designing their own labels for the wines that they blend, etc. So that's it from me, and if there's any questions, I'd be pleased to take them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Roberta. I think that there was lots and lots of really valuable information in your presentation for everyone listening out there. And I imagine that everyone like me was sort of scribbling madly because it's certainly given us a lot to think about. So please do, we've got a bit more time. So if you'd like to send your questions in to Roberta, now is your chance. We will just wait.
And we can flip up to other slides if people want to have a look at them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Will people have the slides if they want them?
Yes.
Okay.
So what will happen, so post the webinar today, as per usual, we will within 24 hours send everyone a link to the live recording. If Roberta's happy for me to email directly to everyone registered a copy of the presentation to reference, I'll certainly do that this week for you all as well. But I'm certainly going to go back and have a look at that Small Talk Vineyards website, as I think, it's got some great inspiration for just thinking outside the box as to what you can do and create that sense of place and engagement, which is not directly with your brand, but it's memorable. It brings people back.
Yeah, they're just value wines. They're not super expensive.
Yeah,
but they were designed unashamedly around preferences that women have identified that they preference, and they have a huge following. And women go there, they get a facial, they take a yoga class, they've got a creche. Yeah, they've got a creche. And I see that they've kind of obviously put a few more men in the photos now, but a few years ago, no, there was kind of a waiting room where they could come and pick up the girls after lunch. Yeah. But it was really their getaway.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we've got any questions. As I said, I think people are most probably just absorbing all that amazing content you've just shared with us.
Okay.
So thank you again for your presentation today, Roberta, and thanks so much for everyone for attending. WCA's next webinar will be held on the 13th of October, and that's going to be presented by a couple of Wine Australia's future leader graduates who will provide some valuable insight into the program and their personal experiences. So be sure to add that one to your calendar. For WCA members, all recordings from previous webinars are held on the members section of our website, and any Wine Australia sponsored recordings are on the YouTube channel. So if you go to our website to find these recordings under Industry Insights tab. And finally, if you have any suggestions on webinar topics you'd like us to cover in future webinars, or indeed you would like some contact details to keep the conversation going with Roberta, please email me at wca@winecommunicators.com.au. I think that's all from us. Thank you again for joining today. Stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you online soon. Thank you.
Thank you.